to women, he said it, right? He's like, not on tape. He does it to our flag. And then he acts like, well, I'm so in love, the flag loves me too. The flag did not ask for you to grab it all over, it didn't. But then he gets on the mic and says, I don't like POWs who get caught, right? Essentially, he makes fun of our men and women who served bravely in theaters of war or just simply wore that uniform in service to their country. A man who has never once had the courage, the bravery, the spine. He had bone spurs, but no spine to actually stand up for our country, is going to violate our flag and call himself a patriot. We can't be okay with that. We have to call him out for that. And we have to hold him accountable, not just in groups like this where we get to make fun of him, but when it counts at the voting booth. Right? We have to remind all our friends who are vets, who think he's cool, how he basically rapes the flag every time he sees it, and then disrespects them in the process. Well, how are they okay with that? You cannot excuse that behavior. So this is who we will get. Should we be dumb enough to not work hard enough to elect Kamala Harris and Tim Walz to lead our country? And when you talk about our babies, and many of us have had babies, even if they're 50, they're still our baby. Mine's 11, and I remind him he's always going to be my baby, and he tells me he always will be. In fact, he's so cute that even though he's almost as tall as I am, he still holds my hand when I walk him to school every morning. It's awesome. And last week, it was like the first week of school, and I was sitting on a bench waiting for him, because they have these cute little benches outside of school. And he's kind of big now, he's in 6th grade. He runs over to me and he just tackles me on the bench. Thank God I was sitting. And he just gave me so many hugs and kisses and he goes, Mommy, I am not embarrassed to do this. But true story, every time I take him to school, which is quite often, believe it or not, I do my schedule so that hopefully, 70% of the time I'm home to walk him to school. The rest of the time I'm traveling. But sometimes I get to pick him up from school too if I can work my meetings around pickup. But I try to take him with my husband. We walk him to school. It's about a half mile every day. And I hold his hand the whole way, even in front of his friends. And then I do the most embarrassing thing for any little kid, right? Who's now becoming like a preteen. And that's that I give him the sign of the cross in front of everybody. Because I'm a Mexican mom and we do these things. But also, I say this, que Dios te bendiga, te cuide, te proteja, y te libre de todo mal hoy y siempre. So that means that may God bless you, protect you, take care of you, and keep you from all harm today and always. And I have to tell you that I squeeze that little hand of his, and I hug him, and I tell him in Spanish that I hope he has an excellent, awesome, fabulous, marvelous day. That's like my routine every day. And then I let go of that little hand and he's off. But I'm telling you, without any equivocation, that when I turn around, I get emotional every time. He's 11. But it's not because I'm dropping him off at daycare for the first time, which, all moms will know what I'm talking about. It's because I don't know. Being a parent of a little kid, thinking that you're taking him to what is supposed to be the safest place he could possibly be except your home. And trusting an institution that you don't know is going to be able to protect your child. That at any moment you could be like one of those moms that just last week got a call with the worst possible news. That their babies, in this case 14-year-olds, were gunned down viciously by a lunatic whose father bought him an AR-15 for Christmas, after the feds had already looked into it. It's beyond anything you can imagine. And it doesn't even, bless you, it doesn't have to be that specific of an instance here that's just so blatantly crazy what happened. But anybody, any parent, anywhere in America should be able to have this complete moment of happiness if you're lucky enough and blessed enough to be able to walk your kids to school, which many people don't have that, and I understand that, which is why it means even more to me to be able to do it. But when you let go of that little hand, you should have this like great feeling. What are you going to learn today? Go explore, what the explorers did. I want you to tell me about it when you come home, knowing that maybe your kid won't. And so that's why I get emotional thinking about it, because it's very real to me. And I live in a city where there's a ton of gun violence. It's actually kind of ironic that even in a city like Chicago, thank God, knock on wood, we haven't had these mass shootings in the schools. I mean, a lot of it happens out of school, but not in the schools. But nonetheless, I still have that same fear that I think lots of moms have across this country, that is my baby going to get gunned down? Is this the last time I'm going to see my child when it's supposed to be a happy moment? So listen, we have a job to do, because our president thinks that the solution to this is just to eliminate the gun-free zones at schools and arm our teachers. And I think that's crazy, but I think it's dangerous. And then his sidekick, J.D. Vance, he literally came out publicly and said that it's just a fact of life. These shootings, we have to see them as a fact of life, and we have to get over it, because it's a fact of life. We just have to learn to deal with it. His words, not mine. I'm just repeating them for all to hear, so we understand what is at stake. Our babies are getting gunned down, and they haven't done a goddamn thing to fix it. So we do something. Pardon me for using bad words, but this is very, very important. If we elect not just Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, but we elect Eric Sorensen and send him back to fight for us in Congress, we send back, well, Tammy's not up this time. Is Durbin up? No, not yet. So Illinois is okay. But if we go volunteer for Tammy Baldwin in Wisconsin, we need her to go back to the Senate, because we have to gain control of the Senate, and we have to have control of the House. And eventually the goal is to have lots of numbers of control in both chambers, because it'll be great to elect the first woman president of the United States of America. But if she is handicapped by the Senate or not having control of the House, then we're going to continue to just talk about sending thoughts and prayers to our kids across America who were executed in broad daylight in their own school. Because without the ability to get stuff done the way the Democrats in Illinois have, why? Because we have a Democratic governor, a Democratic attorney general, a Democratic secretary of state, a Democrat as your controller, and a Democrat treasurer. And we have a supermajority, not just a majority, but a supermajority in the House of Representatives, and a supermajority in the Senate. That is why we were able to do the things we've done and have really delivered for the state of Illinois. It's the Democrats who have delivered for the state of Illinois. And what have we just done since we got rid of Rauner? Yeah. Like, my first 2 years were tougher because JD wasn't there yet. But even in those first 2 years, I got to work and cut the bill back by $9 billion before he even came in. And then with a partner in the governor's office, we've been able to completely wipe out the bill backlog from $17 billion to ending this fiscal year with $1.7 billion cash on hand, first time in over 20 years. That's what Democrats do, without a single Republican voting for this. Think about that. But we could do it because we have control of all the chambers, which means we push the agenda. And you know whose agenda it is? Your agenda, the people's agenda. Because Democrats actually step up for people, and all kinds of people. Not just one kind of people, all kinds of people. That's what our party is all about. And that is what's at stake in this country. Is do we just take it for granted? Feels like it's our time. There's so much momentum. I'm feeling confident. That's great, but don't be overconfident. Don't be overconfident. Now, I promise you deliverance to our first credit upgrade if you were to send me to be your controller and take over as runner. But we didn't stop at 1, or 2, or 3, or 4, or 5, or 6, or 7, or 8. We actually have 9 credit upgrades. And my But this is what Democrats do. We get stuff done. We get it done. So no more bill backlog. Went from a rate $48,000 in the state's rainy day fund to $2.2 billion today. It's the historic high. We've never had that kind of cash in our reserves. And I know it's tempting to want to tap into those reserves, because in every community across Illinois, in 102 counties, people will tell you, as Dick told me today, that it's raining right here. When you hear about layoffs, right, it's hard to not tap into that rainy day fund. It is. And when people hear $2.2 billion, it's like, whoa, you guys have so much cash. Give it to us because we need it. But here's the thing. We can't tap into that fund. We need to continue to grow that fund. Because I know what it was like to be controller when I had a $16.7 billion backlog of unpaid bills. When on my first day in office, it was a 210 business day delay to pay our universities, or to pay our hospitals, or to pay providers of Medicaid, or to pay children or adults with disabilities who needed their services. I don't ever want our state to have to wait 9.5 months to get refunded for services that they already provided to the state. And the only way I can guarantee you that that will never happen again, where someone has to wait that long for money that was promised to them through the budget process, the appropriations process, is by protecting the rainy day fund so that in the event of an economic collapse, not through mismanagement from the state, not through like, oh, we overspent a little bit this year, it needs to be something like the market collapse of 2008, or the Twin Towers getting down in New York and changing America and the country, for the world forever. In this case, we had to tap into all of it because of Bruce Rauner. It wasn't even the pandemic. I mean, the worst virus to ever hit our finances was not COVID, it was Bruce Rauner. It was. But we got beyond it. And now, instead of a 210 business day delay, my oldest bill is 14 days. And it's been that way for 3 years now. 3 years. And I paid it down before getting a penny of federal ARPA stimulus dollars in the door. So if you hear anybody out there, which you will in this part of town, say, well, of course, pay down the bills, you got a boatload of federal money. We did, and we actually needed that for COVID. So if you this is a university town, there's smart people here. Follow my logic. If I actually use the COVID money to pay down existing bills, wouldn't I still have a big backlog of unpaid COVID bills? And we don't. We ended the year with $1.7 billion in cash on hand and $2.2 billion in our rainy day fund. And thanks to leadership of Mike Halpin here, we're building more and more into that, and also spending money instead of on new programming on shoring up our pensions, which are just as important as anything else in the state. So we have to get into the habit as Democrats of being fiscally responsible and disciplined. And when you do that, you go from nothing but consecutive credit downgrades over a 20-year period to 9 credit upgrades in just a few years. So we are on our way, but we're not there yet. And you all know, because you look at your own credit, that it's really easy to tank your credit rating. If you miss one mortgage payment and it goes over 30 days, you're gonna be paying for that for the next 7 years of your credit taking a massive hit. It's gonna take you 7 years to recover from that. Imagine if you were just one notch above junk bond status, which is where we were as a state when I took over. We've now moved into the A territory. So as you get better and better and better, it gets harder and harder and harder to move up to the next notch. So do I expect to see credit upgrades in the near future? Probably not. But that's not a bad thing. It's just that our credit is becoming so much better that it just becomes harder and harder to get that next. You gotta do really great things. And I guarantee you, I promise you, that if we were to tap into our rainy day fund right now, as we're just beginning to build it, we would guarantee ourselves a credit downgrade. And that costs all the taxpayers money, because when we have to add, a new addition to Southern Illinois University, or if we're doing maintenance work that we have to leverage money for Western Illinois University, it's going to cost taxpayers more money. So no one really wins. So we have to be fiscally disciplined, and to give you an idea of why we can't tap into that, it's my last point on this, we have 2.2 billion, it sounds like a lot, but it only gives us 15 days worth of reserves. In case of an economic collapse, it would only allow me to keep paying the bills for 15 days before people really felt it. And I know what people felt during that budget impasse. I was on the phone on 2 occasions trying to talk, and a grown man, who owned a business, who triple mortgaged his home, couldn't pay his employees anymore, a 20-something-year business, who was on the verge of killing himself. And I had to talk him down. So this is why you should believe me when I tell you to trust me. I think I've delivered way more than anybody could have imagined as your controller in this state. But we cannot ever allow ourselves to be in a position again where people have to wait 30, 60, 90, 200 days to get paid, and the only protection to the existing budget that Mike Halpin signs on to and passes is that emergency fund, right? So the average state in the nation has 46 days worth of reserves. We have 15. We still have a long way to go. So I hate to be the party pooper on that, but there is a method to the madness here, and we have to keep putting money into that rainy day fund, and we have to keep demanding accountability from everyone, including our university systems, that we're not overspending our means, that we're showing fiscal discipline where we can. You have to make sometimes tough decisions, and it's horrible that these layoffs have happened, but I also have faith and confidence in this area of the state. And you guys aren't alone. And I'm here to tell you that I'm going to show up. You keep inviting me, I'm going to keep showing up. And we're going to keep making sure that we revitalize and we invest in and we pump up this area. And there will be other ways to continue to grow. Maybe it's not totally evident right now in this second or this moment, but I never lose hope about what's possible. And let me tell you that as a Chicagoan, Chicago's hurting. We are. We're going through some serious problems. If you look at the news and look at the finances and look at the crime, it's my favorite city in the world, but we are going through massive challenges. In fact, the growth that we are seeing across the state is in central and southern Illinois. It's in areas that perhaps in the past felt very neglected. But this is where you see the cranes going up. Do you know how many cranes we have in the city of Chicago right now? 2. 2 building cranes in the city of Chicago right now. So it's tough across the board, but actually the growth that we're seeing and the potential for growth is here. Western Illinois, Central Illinois, Southern Illinois, and we're going to keep doing our part to make sure that you guys don't lose hope, and I'm going to keep showing up. So thank you so much for having me. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to serve as your controller, to have managed to stay through the worst of times, and if we can get through that and come out on top, just imagine what lies ahead. But first we got to elect Kamala Harris. So thank you so much for having me.